So my name is Melisa Cardona, and I was I'm originally from Colombia, South America. Grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and now I'm living in the swamps out in New Orleans. I'm going to talk a little bit about the art that I'm doing. It's under the name of 852 Art, and it's a mixed media collage kind of work. I use a lot of found objects. And it all started off because there was this huge box that I was throwing a lot of old letters, family letters, birthday cards, love letters, things like that. And I would just throw them into this box. And I would sometimes also find neat objects. I'm really drawn to rusts and things that seem to have a story behind them. But they're just like laying on the floor. So it's like people would just walk over them, but they were part of something bigger at some point. And I would pick these up, and I started collecting them and throwing them in this box, and I kind of started calling it the memory box. And about 3 years ago, I've never taken an art class in my life, so I didn't know what I was doing, but I went into this box and I found this piece of wood, and I had a little bit of paint from, I think it was like a Halloween paint, I don't remember what it was, and I just painted this piece of wood one solid color, and I went into this box and started looking for things that were either related to the memory or that felt like they were related to somehow and visually looked appealing together. And I started gluing them. And I started off with, I tried like probably 23,000 different types of glues until one finally worked, because some of the objects are heavy and bolts and things like that. Anyway, so it ended up being pretty neat. I got some good response from friends, and I was never really a visual artist in my head. I just started doing it to kind of entertain my brain a little bit. It started growing, and it became almost like meditative, like I was in this zone, and I just had fun doing it, and there was no pressure. It was at whatever time, and it just felt right. When I completed my first 5 pieces, I showed them in New Orleans because some friends did a music show, and they liked it so much that they wanted me to show my stuff, and then people really just started responding to it, and so I've been doing this kind of work ever since. A gallery owner bought a piece, wanted me to do some more, commissioned me, and gave me some old pictures and old things from his family so I could create something for him, and it's been growing ever since. And this started when I about 3 years ago, and I've been coming to Roots. This is my 4th year, so it kind of started a little after Roots. And when I started at Roots is this amazing organization with a bunch of artists and activists that they just kind of share work and look at each other's work and give each other feedback. It's really it's an organization that's figured out how to build a community in 1 week, really. It's really amazing. I was really shy to call myself an artist. I wasn't really comfortable with the word, especially a visual artist. This past year, it's been a couple years since I've been doing this work, and I applied as a visual artist. So I'm here and I'm showing it, and I've gotten some really great feedback. But I feel like if it wasn't for Roots, I would have never gotten to the place where I'm comfortable calling myself an artist, and with it being okay to be an artist. I grew up in a really old traditional family where you had to grow up and go to college and be a doctor or something, right? Anything aside from that, like music or whatever, if it makes you happy, it's great, but it's just a hobby. Don't ever think like that's going to give you it's a very old-fashioned, old-school kind of way of thinking. When I finish them, it's funny because people are like, when do you know you're finished? You just keep layering stuff. Like, do you ever? And I do. There's always a point where I'm like, oh, it's done, and like, I don't know. I can never tell when it's going to be. It's not like I say, you're going to go there. I slowly start working with it. And it's a mixture of visually pleasing and also it feeling right. Some things, if there's like a flower over there and there's a flower over there, it's too equal. It's really in my brain a lot. It's hard to talk about it too, because a lot of it is just visual. It just feels right, and it's hard to put words on it. But there's certainly a moment where it just looks and feels right. I'm still learning how to put words on my art. I'm still learning how to describe it and talk about it. I'm really, really new at that part of it. But yes, to answer your question, yes, there is a moment where it's like a breath of exhale. Like you exhale, it's done. Great. Let's look at the next one. What's the next color?
It's always the next one then.
It is always the next one, which is really interesting because there's always things that I keep finding and throwing in this box, and because now I have friends coming up to me being like, "Hey Mel, I have this frame I'm not using. Give it here," right? Or, hey Mel, look what I just found. Like, I really think you could do something with it. It's like wonderful. So most of the stuff is found or given, but most of the stuff is found. And I also have this really beautiful, also alternate roots group of sisters and friends that we always leave each other little notes and little letters about life and about how our paths keep crossing and braiding, and how we're going to see our children growing up in the same mountains, drinking out of the same fountains and playing in the same woods. And so because we are note writers and letter writers, we also make sure we have computers and emails, but we want to keep that tradition of that. I have this continuous amount of paper letters to work with. And they're real, right? I'm really connected to them because they're either to me or it was to like the whole house. Thanks for letting us crash. And like they go into that memory box. So it's really beautiful. It's also a part of that community that keeps it going. Because I don't know if I could do it if it was just things that weren't meaningful. I mean, unmeaningful things to me, I'll just throw them out, right? Yeah. Roots. One little thing about Roots too, because of Roots, I was able to meet NALAC, which is the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture, and this year Roots is partnering up with them, and I'm a member of both organizations. And because of Roots, I met them, and because of them, because of NALAC, I was able to take the 2009 Leadership Institute course, which helped me a lot to understand nonprofits and to understand an artist working as an activist, etc., in the Latino community and the issues that we're dealing with and how to work around that or with that. And they also invited me to apply to go to their first Advocacy Leadership Institute, and they took me to the White House. I was inside the White House, went to a couple of meetings and conversations with people inside the White House. I met my congressman and his assistant. His assistant actually went to New Orleans and called my cell phone. Hi, we would really like to meet with your organization. I'm also part of a collective of artists called Mondo Bizarro. We do a lot of theater and performance work and a lot of documentation work, photography, videography, and all sorts of stuff. You know, we're expanding into music and some of my visual art. So Mondo Bizarro is also a big part of that. Towards that medium in the past couple of years, and they're being very intentional about that, and I think that's beautiful. And to be a part of that shift, of that movement, just makes me feel all warm inside. I'm just so grateful. Yeah.
Melisa, you are fantastic.
Well,
I can't wait